Hi guys, welcome back to the Point Church podcast. Today I'm interviewing Stephen Workman. You might recognize his last name. Chris Workman is his dad. He is the pastor of Chapel Hill, Point Church Chapel Hill. Hi Stephen, how are you doing today?
Good.
You're good? I'm so glad you're here. You do so much for the church. What are some things that you do at the Point Church?
Well, I play drums lately, and I have for a long time, but since COVID, we've started playing guitar and singing a bit, and also, I guess I volunteer with you in Student Point sometimes.
Yes.
When I can, and the food pantry, I've been doing that for a while, and I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
so.
hey,
Random other things.
that's
yeah.
a lot. I mean, yeah, I was about to say, it was like, you're here, you're one of the first ones here, the last ones to leave. I mean, your heart and your service is just more than welcome and appreciated. So, let's just dive in. I just want to get to know a little bit about you. This interview is going to be a little different. We're going to talk a little bit more about faith and just some of our personal testimonies. So your early life, how was that growing up? Did you grow up in the church? Did you, what was that like?
Yeah, I was a PK.
You were
so
a PK.
I did grow up in the church. Church of Christ, I think, actually. So a little more, what do you call it? Strict, but not really. I mean, maybe for some people, but I was a little kid, so it didn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, just like, hymns, no instruments, which were cool. Some of them I still hear today, just modern form. And, yeah, I was a big believer as much as a kid could be. I was very optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I had no problems with church or anything. I just thought it to be true like everything else that I was ever taught. And, yeah.
What age did you come to the Point Church?
Age did I come to the point? Around sophomore year, so
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is.
And how were you influenced? I mean, that's different than hymns. I mean, you've been
Oh.
up here, you play the music.
Well, I started going to more modern churches when my dad founded a church in Texas
Okay.
around when I was, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 or 5, who knows.
Yeah.
But he started a church out of the Church of Christ. Like, he was a pastor there also. And then for some reason he left. I don't remember what happened, but yeah. And he wanted to plant his own church, and that's when we adopted the more modern sort of, drums, classic worship band. That was really the only difference.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of doctrine, and like what we decide to teach is more like personalized and less like just reading through the books, I guess. Or
Awesome.
I don't remember. I was in Sunday school, not the big sermons.
Yeah, I am. So I want to hear a little bit about your testimony and what was your walk with Jesus like? Like when you first came to the church, your first encounter with Jesus. I mean, what did that look like?
My first encounter as I walked through the church.
Okay. I mean, I can word it better if you'd like.
No, I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Because it's just such a jumble. I mean, I started out in the church, as I said, and then I guess I kind of faded into agnostic around early teenage years. I don't remember when that was, though.
Was there a specific thing that happened?
Not really. I mean, I started questioning things more. I got more critical thinking into my mind. And I mean, my mom did die from cancer around when I was 10 or 8 or something like that. And that sort of struck a chord where I was like, I don't know. It was kind of just a wild, why her thing, which everybody gets when they lose a loved one.
Yeah.
And it's that started some critical thinking, and everybody says like if a child loses a parent, matures them a little bit, and I'd say that's probably true for me and my sister.
Yeah.
But then we moved to Illinois and met Michelle and Caden, my stepbrother, and we started going to a different church called Richwoods Christian Church down in Illinois, and that's where my dad worked for the entire time we were in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that church. It was a good church, and there were some things there, and I started talking to more variety of people. I had school friends, and they were old enough to think for themselves, so we'd talk about religion, and I was introduced to the internet where a lot of people have differing opinions about religion, and
Yeah.
eventually I started forming enough questions in my mind where I didn't know how to answer them because my faith wasn't mature enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, do I actually believe this, or have I just been doing what my dad says? And so, yeah, that's where I started like fading off because I was like questioning authority, you know.
Which I think that all
Yeah.
teenagers go through though. So like, yeah.
And it's honestly probably a bad thing if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you need to know for yourself. I always kind of am weary about that when I'm looking at teenagers now. I'm like, do they actually care? Like, I mean, it's okay for a young person to go through religion wishy-washy, and I think most young kids have to because there's really not much they can do except believe. But when you get to a certain age, you have to know if you're actually doing it for the right reasons or if you actually believe it. Because a lot of people, like, as we've seen from statistics, when people get to college, usually they drop out of church because it's like they don't have to anymore. So
Yeah.
that's probably what's going to happen to a lot of kids if they don't start actually finding a reason to believe.
Yeah, I think a big goal of the church that needs to be more incorporated is helping students find those like the belief of God for themselves. But more than that, of preparing them for when those questions come up and encouraging those questions and sitting down with them and helping them answer as many as we can. Because I think that's when we just kind of push it to the side or just kind of like, no, just keep showing up on Sundays. That doesn't really encourage faith. And that's kind of just like, it's a thing we do. So I agree that I think that kids, I'd rather them not fade away, if that makes sense. I'd rather them kind of stay put, because I know, like, I mean, you can speak to it. I'm sure most of the people in the church can speak to it, of making mistakes growing up and regretting those mistakes. And I'd rather the kids not make those mistakes and just kind of think before they make them and think of like, okay, well, is this really what I want to do? Is this really who God wants me to be? And really sitting down with that. During that agnostic time, what was it like still going to church and like being there? Like, I guess like a wolf among sheep, if anything. But
no, I mean, that was when I started coming here. So, I mean, most of y'all were here for it. I don't think you were, but Colin and my dad were, and everybody. And as anybody who was here knows, I didn't stop serving. I was still playing in the band. I came every week, did what I could. I still liked all the people. My lack of, it wasn't like I disliked Christianity. It wasn't anything of the sort. It was just I don't know that I really believe in it. And yeah, I didn't have any problem with people. I didn't have any problem with coming. Maybe I didn't listen as much or take as much weight to people's words as I used to. That being teachers, not just anybody. But yeah, I don't know. I just kept doing the same thing, but trying to think more critically.
At what point did that change for you from being fading away to like, this is something that I want to pursue again? This is something that I believe in.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when it happened. It happened, again, very subtly and slowly. I didn't have any aha moment. Um, I remember I used to work at Pop's Pizza, which I don't know if you know, but that's the pizza place down the street. We used to go there after church all the time when I first got here. Like that was the place for the Point Church.
Yeah.
They even sponsored us a few times, and we like
That's
took everybody there and had like it
Yeah.
was cool. So I worked there, and a lot of times when I was washing dishes, I would kind of talk to myself, and like I was like sort of talking. I was trying. I would find myself more talking to God than myself, though, in my head. Of course, I'm not just sitting there like being a psycho. And
No.
calling my
Yeah.
coworkers. But I was like, I found myself more talking to this theoretical God that I've always talked to in my head. Like, ever since I was a kid, I've been taught to pray, and I learned pretty quickly that I could just talk to him in my head, kind of just casually. Or I always would. That's how I thought of prayer. And so, I kept doing it while I was washing dishes because it's a pretty boring, mundane task, and you kind of have to fill your head with something.
Yeah.
And so I'd be washing thousands of dishes, just talking to him in my head, and I don't know, after a little while, I'd start thinking about things and kind of felt like I wasn't talking to myself at a certain point. I was like, I feel like there's actually a reason I'm talking about these things, and I had to start thinking about that. And I would also talk to my sister. I loved when I was agnostic. One of my favorite things to do was to disprove it or like make other people question it. I was like, I cannot be crazy. There's got to be another person here that knows how like baseless their faith is. And I'm like, so
I mean, I think it's important to have a foundation. So, like, to an extent,
I'm not saying
don't
this
be that
is right.
troublesome kid in youth
No.
group who's just like, oh, but it's
That's who I was. I wouldn't do that to everybody, but I do it to like my sister. And like,
Yeah.
cause she's like the perfect human. It's ridiculous, honestly. She's my brother and I.
Lori.
We've always looked like really bad kids next to her. She's
Aw.
the ultimate like savant. She's completely clean record.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's also have one of the strongest faiths I've ever seen. And I'd talk to her, and unlike the other kids, like I'd talk to my friends or like the other people in the youth group, and they couldn't really give me answers. They'd just avoid the conversation, which I liked. I was like, hey, I know better. I'm so smart. And then when I talked to my sister, she would actually refute them really well every
Really?
single time. And she always had the answers because she actually like read up on things and was actually like, and I didn't want to talk to my dad because he's a pastor and a know-it-all. So he was like, I was like, I can't buy what he says. Like, he's always just going to tell me what he's always told me. Like, I
Yeah.
was very like, yeah, I don't care about my dad's opinions. But my sister,
Yeah.
she, in my eyes, was an equal. And so when I talked to her, it was like, wow, you're smarter than me in that? Like, or something like she could like compare to it. And I was like, whoa. So her refuting things and answering these questions basically I had, because any of my questions towards them wasn't because I knew the answers. I was just trying to prove to them that they didn't know the answers either. And so when she actually did have something like she'd answer the question or like give me a way to think about it differently, I was like, wow, okay. And eventually I'd have to stop arguing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of it goes to her, and I bet she doesn't maybe even know that, but yeah,
That's
she's
awesome.
she's smart. And so
She's smart. I love Lori. She's definitely, I got to work with her last summer, the
Yeah,
summer
right.
before that, and she's definitely a strong woman of faith, and she
Mhm.
lives out her life like that. Being agnostic, I mean, you kind of spoke a little to it of like arguing with Lori about it, but I mean, I know that some of the audience, even me, like I have friends who are agnostic. I have people who don't know what to believe in or who to believe in. Um, what would you have liked to be said to you during that time?
Well, I would probably want them to do what my sister did and have those arguments with me. Like most people thought I was being a bigot, but I was just as confused as everybody. So, like, answer their questions, have those conversations, have those tough conversations, read up. Like, you can't hope to turn people if you don't know the answers to those questions, or at least how to help them
Mm-hmm.
come to terms with why you believe it despite knowing those questions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been like reading a lot of C.S. Lewis lately, and he's the ultimate answerer of those questions,
Really?
like mere Christianity and the abolition of man and the Great Divorce and all those things. Very very practical, more than like reading the Bible, because that's usually going to form questions for yourself, not answer questions. I mean, it can answer questions. That's what the Bible's for, but it takes a lot more. But if you read C.S. Lewis or somebody like that, just faith-based books, you can talk to probably any pastor and find out what those books are. I know my dad's got a library, but
So do you listen to it, what he has to say now that?
I try.
Yeah. That's really cool to hear. I mean, I know that that's something I struggle with, of how to answer those questions, and like, but I do firmly believe that sometimes we need that. We don't need to know everything. I don't think our job is to know everything, but I think that we should have a firm foundation in who Jesus is, and be able to talk with people about what that means to be a Christian and what we're fighting for so desperately, because like, these are people's lives on the hand, you know?
Yeah.
So, I kind of want to ask you like an interesting question. So why do you think God is real?
All right.
All right.
Well, there's certainly a faith aspect to it, where it's like, a lot of it was like, when I was an agnostic, I was like, there's no way to prove it. And there's also no way to prove anything else. As far as like a greater power or evolution, it's a hypothesis. But there's a few different things that have gone into it. There's that feeling that some people get, and I guess I get a little bit of that feeling. I haven't had like a thing where I start speaking in tongues like some people claim. I won't say they're wrong or whatever, but I mean, I haven't had anything like that. But one thing I found interesting was that it's hard, like, people can make up other religions and other ideas, and it makes sense that they can make it up, and then they continue to make up these rules around it, because if you're making something up, then you can build it up to make sense. But with religion, there's no way to answer those. With Christianity, I mean, there's no way to answer those questions, because we didn't make it up. Like, it just doesn't seem like something that humans could make up. It's too convoluted, too complicated. There's no reason a human brain would think it up. Like, God is an all-knowing being, so he created humans, but then knowing that humans would sin, they still sinned against him, and he gave us free will so that we could sin. And then preemptively, he had already planned to send his own son to die for our sins so that he could pay this debt that he made to us for himself. So he's paying our own debt, even though, like, it's just, why would humans think up that?
Yeah. 100%.
It's complicated. It's like,
I do sometimes compare it and think about other religions and like their gods, and like I find myself constantly going back to, because I grew up reading these stories of, you know, in the Old Testament, of like God burning down cities and doing these things and stuff like that. And recently CCF has, my campus ministry, we've started doing an actual Bible study of like the books in the Bible, and sitting down and really listening to them and really like trying to understand. And like time and time again, like I've learned that God has forgiven us, and that he has put himself on the line, and that he has made a promise to us, and that he's doing all this. And it's just like, it's very interesting, because I can see in American culture how we like, because it's that whole idea of like, oh, like, you know, the rest of the planets revolve around us. And we have that kind of culture of just like the rest of the world revolves around America and the United States. But the fact that it's a religion that did not originate here, and the fact that time and time again, it's not even that the Bible revolves around people, it revolves around God's forgiveness and his grace. And I'm just like, that's a God that I want to serve. Like, you know, compared to the other gods where you have to make sacrifices or do certain things or be a certain person or like,
Yeah.
and then this God is just so almighty and amazing, and he wants to be my friend. Like, he wants to know me, and he wants to help me out and make sure that I'm putting something into his kingdom. Like, that's an honor and a privilege. And sometimes I feel like we just take it granted for it. I mean, like, yes, you play drums, but you know how much of an honor that is to like be up here on this stage, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah. I've always liked that idea too, where it's like he didn't make us to please him. He made us because he is love, and he gave us free will to go against him so that he could actually earn love back from us. Because you can't create human beings that love you, because without free will, there is no love. And so he gave us the ability to mess up, and it's not what we can do for him, it's what he can do for us. And he just wants to love us, and it's like, that's pretty interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. So, based on your belief that he is real, how has the church encouraged you with this belief or even led you away?
Okay. Yeah. Well, this church has been good.
It's like, don't get me wrong, this church is great.
My church has been good.
Yeah.
Y'all I haven't had pretty much any issues with y'all. Y'all are really good.
Oh, thanks.
And I don't want to say anything bad about Richwood's Christian Church. There's nothing wrong with the church. But when I was there, I would, like in high school and middle school, you're around a lot of other teenagers. If it's a big church where there's, you know, a huge youth group and kids get to express their own opinions and stuff, and a lot of hypocrisy that I saw kind of hurt my view of Christianity when I was in that church, because I'd see it from whether it be like even leaders or other students or pastors or anything.
Yeah.
Whenever I saw hypocrisy, I was just like, wow, that's kind of hypocritic.
Yeah.
Hypocritic. I don't know, whatever.
Hypocritical.
Hypocritical, yeah.
I'm an English major.
And so that didn't help. And not to say that people can't be hypocrites, because we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't always do what I preach. Neither does my dad. Neither does anybody. And so, you know, that fed my belief that I was, you know, being wise in questioning the institution. So I was like, okay, they're like feeding my ego, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that didn't necessarily that wasn't wrong, but it didn't help my situation, which isn't their job. Although who knows? I don't know. I mean, I would want to help youth in our church believe personally, and I think most of us would. So, but we are just human. We have to let God do the heavy lifting on that. But helping, plenty. I mean, I've loved playing in the worship band and seeing how things have gone over the many years I've played here. I've seen a lot of cool things happen and a lot of great people come and go, and you know, it's been quite the journey. I've always loved this church and been part of it for quite a while, and yeah, met lots of great friends here. And that's about all I can say. I mean, as far as helping my faith, they've just done what they've done. It's been situation by situation, conversation by conversation, line after line, very specific. Like, I cannot recant pretty much any aha moments at all. Everything about my faith has been slow and steady.
And sometimes it's different for everybody. I mean, we all have those aha moments, but sometimes we just need to be like, all of a sudden, this is something that I want to pursue, and this is
Yeah.
something that I want to help other people pursue.
Mm-hmm.
So, my last question of the night, the big one. What's the point?
Hey.
What does the Point Church mean to you?
What's the point? Podcast.
What's the point podcast?
Okay. What's the point? Is that literally the question?
No, it's what's the point? What does the Point Church mean to you?
Oh, okay. Got it. I
I'm not gonna
didn't
get
realize
that
that was a tag. Okay. What does the point mean to me? Well, I mean, I guess my statements on the last question kind of help answer that. I mean, it's just a good place with good people. I come here every week, and it's definitely part of my routine to come on Thursdays for band practice, go to food pantries on Saturdays, do church all morning on Sunday, and then do life groups later with the youth, and hang out at the college house sometimes, and
Yeah.
you know, go to dinner with Colin after church. I'm so sorry about last time. And
I'm so sorry about last time.
but yeah, I mean, this has always been a benchmark of my week and helps me get through the months and years. Just every week, it's like, okay, work week's over, school week's over in the past. You know, it's like now I get to go to church on Sunday, and then once I'm done with church, I go to bed, and then I start the week up again. I practice on Thursdays. It's like, you know, it's
Yeah.
it's a good routine, and we often learn good things in the sermons, learn new songs on Sunday when we introduce new songs because of the Point sermon series or whatever brings it about. And, yeah, sometimes meet new friends when new people come, which is always great. So I think that's what it mostly means to me. Yeah.
All the people along the way.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I've enjoyed this interview. If you would like to see it live, tune in a couple of weeks at livech.pointchurch.com. I'd love to interact with you as the host. And if not, catch us on any streaming service that streams podcasts and our YouTube channel at Point Church Chapel Hill.